So for the nutrients cycling, right, component of the syllabus, it's really just asking about the nitrogen cycle and using the nitrogen cycle to look at the perspectives, right, of nutrient cycling. And that's what this is all about, right? We're gonna look at the nitrogen cycle, then at the end, we're gonna discuss the importance of nutrients flow within an ecosystem. So the beautiful nitrogen cycle, it just fills me with joy and excitement, right? Such a beautiful cycle. Somehow I remember the entire cycle, right? But that's probably because it's such a wonderful cycle, right? So let's have a look at what's happening here. Have a look at the steps, right? This is one thing I'm going to do, right? I'm going to say it out here. I'm going to say it now and freely. I don't business about what is in the syllabus. I'm going to go through the steps, the chemical reactions, and the organisms that cause it. Probably as is in the syllabus. If it's not in the syllabus, I'm going to go through it anyways, right? Because that's the only way in which we can properly understand the nitrogen cycle, right? So let's have a look at this. So first we start with nitrogen fixation, right? We're just starting at this step, right? So nitrogen fixation. So this is where we convert atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia, right? Or other ammonia containing compounds that can be utilized by our producers, our plants, right? So the organisms involved, when we look at free living soil bacteria, right? We're looking at nitrogen fixation in the soil itself, right? This is done by bacteria such as Rhizobium and Azobacter, which can fix nitrogen by converting atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia, right? We also have symbiotic bacteria, right? So, such as our rhizobium species, right? So different types of rhizobium from symbiotic relationships with leguminous plants and fix nitrogen within their nodules, right, on the plant's roots, the fibrous roots, right? For example, rhizobium bacteria form nodules on the roots of soybeans where they fix atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia, benefiting both the bacteria and the plant itself. The chemical reaction is stated here, right? So on top that picture there is our picture of Azobacter, right? Some Azobacter species mixed up with some other this is a Bacillus species here, right? This is a cocci shaped bacteria over here. So it's mixed up, but generally the clump is Azobacter. And then down here we'll look at how a Rhizobium species really forms a root nodule with the roots. Okay? Everything here is fine? Everything here is clear?
Yes, sir.
Alright? Nitrification. Alright? So nitrification, I'm gonna call it nitrification. Nitrification is the conversion of ammonia into nitrite and then into nitrate. Ammonia oxidizing bacteria such as Nitrosomonas will convert ammonia to nitrite, and then our nitrite oxidizing bacteria such as Nitrobacter will now oxidize nitrite to nitrate, right? So nitrosomonas bacteria, right, oxidize ammonia in the soil, will to nitrite in soil rather, and nitrobacter will take the nitrite and turn it to nitrate, right? So on top we have our nitrosomonas here, right? Which a bit, it's a little bit of it's an interesting shape. It looks bulgy. It looks like two cocci put together. You're gonna learn about the morphology of bacteria in level one microbiology, and then here we have this nitrobacter here. So the first reaction is for nitrosomonas here. We have ammonia with the use of some oxygen, right, to produce a nitrite, and then the nitrite is now oxidized again with oxygen to produce nitrate. Is everything fine so far?
Yes, sir.
Lovely. Assimilation now. The process of assimilation it speaks to the incorporation of inorganic nitrogen in the form of nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia into organic compounds by plants and other organisms. So the plants will absorb nitrates and ammonia from the soil and incorporate it into their amino acids, proteins, and other organic molecules, while microorganisms, nitrogen bacteria in symbiosis with plants will assimilate nitrogen into organic compounds within the root nodules, right? So we also have animals as well. Animals will eat these plants, right? And those will travel up through the trophic level, right? In forms of proteins and amino acids, right? well, amino acids make proteins in the form of proteins, right? So those say the same protein, right, that you're looking at on your skin is made with the same nitrogen that traveled through the cytosol nitrosomonas once, right? So it's the same thing. We're making our nutrients travel through the ecosystem. The nutrients cycling through the ecosystem, right? So your skin is the same nitrogen that you're touching with your hand through the air, right? It's made from the same nitrogen, right? So plants absorb nitrates and those type of things, right, into their proteins, and then the animals will not eat the plants, and then the predators will not eat those animals, and that's where all the proteins come from, right? And that's how the nutrients are cycled within, right? Okay. Ammonification now. Ammonification is a conversion of organic nitrogen compounds into ammonia. Now we're looking at removing these complex or removing nitrogen from these complex organic molecules. We're looking at decomposers. Bacteria and fungi decompose organic waste such as dead plants and animal waste, right? Releasing ammonia, right, through the breakdown of the proteins, right? So looking at that. So bacteria decompose these, right? Releasing ammonia as a byproduct. So looking at these things, alright? And they have denitrification now. Denitrification, well, pseudomonas is one thing that can assist in ammonification. Sorry, it's not on slide, but I just mentioned it, right? And pseudomonas can also help in denitrification, right? So in denitrification now, right, we're gonna have the conversion of nitrates and nitrites back into inorganic nitrogen as a gas, right? So denitrifying bacteria such as pseudomonas carry out denitrification in anaerobic conditions, right? Converting nitrates or nitrites back into nitrogen gas. Pseudomonas bacteria in waterlogged soils convert nitrate and nitrate and into nitrogen gas, right? So notice, in waterlogged soils. Interesting. Okay, so in anaerobic conditions. So when persons dig up the soil and everything and introduce oxygen, right, it could be useful in certain cases for nitrification. Notice in nitrification, when persons till the soil and dig it up around the roots, right, it's promoting nitrification, nitrogen fixation, right, by our nitrosomonas and our nitrobacter, right? But after a while now, right, after the plant is dead and everything, right, the soil is generally not disturbed to prevent oxygen from entering the soil, to allow pseudomonas to break it down and return the nitrogen to the air, right? So these are the chemical reactions here. So the first chemical reaction is with the nitrate, right, back into nitrogen, and the second one is from nitrite back into nitrogen. Okay. So you have different species of pseudomonas, right? That can cause different types of diseases and stuff like that. We're not gonna talk about that. Microbiology did that, right? So we have that there. So now we're looking at this now. We know the different steps and just going through the cycle, right? The nitrogen in the atmosphere can either be directly fixed into plants via mutualistic bacteria rhizobium species, right? Or, right, we could have azobacter that can convert it to ammonium ions within the soil, right? Then we're gonna have nitrification by the act of not pseudomonas, by nitrosomonas or nitrobacter to produce these things. So the first nitrification to create nitrite is by nitrosomonas. The second is by nitrobacter, right? So we have that there. This should say denitrification here. So this is the issue with this diagram. This should say denitrification. Let me write this in. This should say denitrification. I don't know if it will work. This should be denitrification. Yeah, it's not gonna work properly. But denitrification here, right? So denitrification will carry it back to atmospheric nitrogen, right? When nitrites and nitrates now are absorbed or assimilated, right, into organisms, right, primarily the producers, and then animals will consume the producers, etc. Right? So by feeding as well, so feeding and digestion, right, that's how the animals, the consumers, get the amino acids, right? When both die, right, then we're gonna have their saprobionts, right, our saprophytes will feed on them. So our saprophytes are types of the of detritivores, right? So we're gonna have our detritivores and our decomposers, right? And our saprophytes, actually breaking them down now, and some amount of pseudomonas would be in the group of decomposers that we're talking about, and that will now contribute to ammonification, which will return it to the soil as ammonium ions, and then denitrifying bacteria will assist in returning it to the atmosphere. So all of these different things are occurring within the nitrogen cycle. That's really it. Are there any questions or concerns?
No, sir.
All right. So the importance of nutrient flow. So this is just a list of the importance of nutrient flow, right? So it supports primary production. So nutrient flow provides the necessary elements such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and all these other things, right, for the primary producers to carry out photosynthesis to produce organic matter, right? And this organic matter is precisely, right, the thing that holds up the entirety of the ecosystem, right? So it maintains trophic relationships as well, right? Nutrient flows facilitates the transfer of energy and nutrients from primary producers to consumers at higher trophic levels, such as herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. This supports trophic relationships and sustain diverse communities of organisms within a single ecosystem, right? So nutrient availability also influences population dynamics by affecting growth rates, reproductive success, and survival of organisms, right? So adequate nutrient flow ensures optimal conditions for population growth, etc. So these things are very important, right? We'll also have the fact that it drives biogeochemical cycles. The nutrient flow is integral to biogeochemical cycles, such as the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycles, right? You look at the phosphorus cycles a little bit in microbiology, right? Which regulate the distribution of cycling of elements between living organisms rather, and the atmosphere, soil, and water, right? These cycles are also playing integral role in the ecosystem functioning, such with nutrient cycling and soil fertility, right? So when these organisms die off, that's when you're gonna have to know use inorganic materials and stuff like that within fertilizers to replenish the soils, right? When you have the nitrogen based fertilizers, right? Used in soils that are completely depleted, but you don't have enough nitrosomonas and nitrobacter, right? So we're looking at stuff like that, right? So it's we sustain ecosystem services as well, right? So nutrient flow supports ecosystem services essential for human well-being, such as air and water purification, soil formation, nutrient cycling, and climate regulation. All of these different things. Healthy nutrient flow maintains the provision of these services, which are critical for supporting agriculture, fisheries, clean water, and climate resilience. And then we have enhancing resilience overall. So the balanced and efficient nutrient flow enhances ecosystem resilience by promoting adaptive capacity and buffering against any environmental disturbances such as droughts, floods, and pollution. Right? So we're looking at these different uses, the importance of nutrient cycling within the ecosystem, and that brings this topic to a close. All right.